this clear to you? Visible? Audible? Am I audible to you all? Okay. This is all good. Flashback வந்து ஒரு பீரியட் மூவி மாதிரி இருக்கும். 25 years ago, around 2000. ஏன் இந்த flashbackங்கிறத நான் சொல்றேன். Why a computer engineer turned IRS officer, posted as a chief commissioner of income tax, is standing before law students? Some of you may have this thought crossing your mind. அதுக்கு தான் ஒரு flashback. So around 2000, in Trichy Law College, I did my INI College BL degree. Then my faculty was none other than Dr. J. Vijayalakshmi. She was my faculty for labor law. I don't forget labor law, madam. So I developed tax acumen, legal acumen from my 3 years INI College. I cleared at one stroke. So I was very studious. So I cleared the degree, and that's the reason we remained connected. And when she invited, I couldn't say no. So that was one reason, and I'm really thrilled and impressed by the level of enthusiasm you all have to organize this international conference. Talking of Professor Vijayalakshmi, she has many feathers in her cap. First, she was the first principal of this new college campus at Pudupakkam. You know how many challenges she would have faced, and she was working day and night. I was in touch with her when she was facing all the challenges, and it has only toughened her resolve, commitment, and sincerity to this legal teaching profession. Second, she is the first woman to occupy the chair of Director of Legal Studies in Tamil Nadu. And in the history of Tamil Nadu Directorate of Legal Studies, it is the very first international conference. Just see how many firsts she has done. So I like to appreciate her and Professor Jaya Gauri, who is the organizing thing, with a thundering applause through you. Thank you. அதாவது இவங்க ரெண்டு காம்பினேஷனை பார்த்தபோது தெரிஞ்சது 300 வருஷத்துக்கு முன்னாடி பாரதி கண்ட புதுமை பெண்கள். அவங்க இப்போ 3 பேர் இங்க இருக்கிறாங்க. So I am really thrilled. Now let me come to the topic. Litigation in income tax, scope for tax lawyers. Income tax கொஞ்சம் ட்ரை சப்ஜெக்ட் கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கிறேன். நான் வரும்போது சொன்னாங்க டாக்ஸ் லா பேப்பர்ல தான் நிறைய பேர் ஐஎஸ் வைக்கிறாங்க சார், கொஞ்சம் பார்த்து சொல்லுங்க. I assure you, after my presentation in income tax law today, all of you will clear income tax law paper in the next semester. That assurance I am giving you. I'll give you an interesting reason why this income tax practice is considered to be niche area. I was in Mumbai for 8 years. அங்க வந்து top taxpayers அப்படின்னு statistics ஆட் பண்ணுவோம். 100 different categories, business, professionals. So among the professionals, I was to know in Mumbai who pays the highest income tax, meaning who makes the highest income. It is not engineer, not doctor, not architect, not any other profession. It was an income tax lawyer in Mumbai who paid the highest income tax. Remember, students, if you want to specialize and make money, good money, and pay good income tax, you choose income tax as a profession. After, of course, a few years of your practice, it is a niche area. I will try to make it interesting as far as possible. The cricket la வந்து மேட்ச் ஆரம்பிக்கும் முன்னாடி பிச்சை தட்டி பார்ப்பாங்க, பவுலரும் பார்ப்பாரு. அது மாதிரி let me understand where to pitch my speech and presentation. How many of you are first time in the law profession in your family history? First time? Understand. Great. I mean, we always talk about Dravidian model of inclusive growth. You have 80-90% of the students are first time in legal profession. Your parents are not, in spite of it, you have chosen. Then, who wants to pursue income tax practice after your degree? Yes, I understand. See, many scientists have said that the toughest to understand in this planet is income tax law. Many have said this. Because of human ingenuity, we always try to interpret the law in our favor so that we pay less tax. Am I right? Right. So, because of that, income tax law is always complicated. So, we need to go for a litigation to settle down that. Now, you need to understand which period of Indian history we are in now. We must be very proud of saying that we are in a country which is the fastest growing large economy in the world. Consecutively, last 5 years, we have overtaken China in terms of GDP growth, and in terms of size of economy, now we are number 4 in the world. So, you don't belong to the generation which saw scarcity everywhere, which saw poverty. Now, I'll give you a statistics how much we have grown. 30 years முன்னாடி நான் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்ல ஜாயின் பண்ணும்போது annual budget வந்து 10,000 crore only. This reflects also the income level of Indians. Now, you know how much is the target for this current financial year 25-26? It is 25 lakh crore. So that much is the economic growth, and that much is the income growth, and that much is the income tax collection. Why I am saying all this is for those who want to pursue income tax litigation as their profession. Please have it in mind, there is a great scope for you. If you are an income tax lawyer, you interact with the creamy layer, not with 2 lakh, 3 lakh income. Always deal with the 1 crore income people, right? Now it is up to you. You want to practice civil law or criminal law or income tax practice. It is a super specialization. Now let me start with this overview of tax litigation. Why do we have tax litigation? நம்ம தமிழ்ல சொல்லுவாங்க வில்லங்கம் அப்படி எதனால வில்லங்கம்? 2 பார்ட்டிஸ் இருந்துட்டாங்கனாலே அந்த வில்லங்கம் வந்துருது. இப்போ அந்த வில்லங்கத்தை தீர்த்து வைக்கணும்னா there has to be a litigation process. There has to be an institution. So you are here to help in resolving dispute between taxpayers and tax authorities. Okay. All of you know you are in a transition period from IPC, CRPC Evidence Act to BNS, BNSS. When I studied 25 years ago, the sections were different. I am not in a civil or criminal law, so I don't have to recollect or understand the new section. If I Google it, I find out. We in the income tax are going through a similar transition in this year. Now, whatever you learn in the income tax law paper is based on Income Tax Act 1961. Recently, those who have read the newspaper would have known that the Income Tax Act has been amended, changed, and renamed as Income Tax Act 2025, which is with effect from 1/4/2026. It is not yet implemented. So probably for the next semester you will be still reading 1961. So those who have not still entered that stage, first year, second year, they don't have to read both the acts. Just like those who read both IPC, CRPC, BNS, BNSS, you have to read Income Tax Act 1961 and 2025 from April 2026 onwards. Again, the reason why I mentioned about BNS is somewhat similar. Law is simplified, sections are rearranged, and it is compiled in such a way it is easy to grasp. Similar way, the Income Tax Act has been amended to make it simple. As you know, income tax is already complicated, so we have made an attempt to transform it. So from next year onwards, you will be reading Income Tax Act 2025. And let's go to the next slide. Importance of tax litigation. எதனால tax litigation நமக்கு? First, of course, there is this offers as a platform to challenge arbitrary assessments. Arbitrariness பத்தி உங்களுக்கு சொல்ல வேண்டிய அவசியம் இல்லை. Lawyers, whenever something is done unreasonably and without giving natural justice, it is an arbitrary order. So whenever there is an arbitrary order or assessment, you come into the picture. This tax litigation gives you transparency and accountability. Transparency, accountability on the part of the tax authorities. You can fix responsibility on them. And it shapes interpretation of statute. This income tax law needs to be interpreted. Whenever there is an issue with the interpretation, there is a litigation. So this helps in interpreting the law in the right way. And of course, it promotes stability in fiscal policy, that is budget. Whenever every year we bring in a finance act, every year the income tax law undergoes change. That is the reason why many people don't opt for income tax. Once you read BNS and BNSS, that's more or less the same. Thereafter, you have to only remember, understand the case laws. Sections of BNS, provisos, explanatory notes, they don't change. There is no amendment to BNS every year. But there is an amendment to income tax law every year. Not much those days, but the reason why income tax law needs to be amended because it is very much related to economy and technology, right? And new business and profession. 10 years back, you never heard of digital currency, cryptocurrency. Did we? No. When there is a new technology, we didn't know about e-commerce those days, 10, 15 years ago. This e-commerce, Swiggy, likewise, Amazon. E-commerce was not there. So when there is a new business growth opportunity avenue, naturally the law concerning that particular business also needs to undergo change. So that is the reason why we have different laws every year. What is natural justice? You might have come across natural justice. Natural justice is a term which is most commonly used in every sphere of law, whether it is a civil law, criminal law, or income tax. One cross question just to see whether you are awake. Is income tax law civil law or criminal law? Yes. Okay, please solve. Criminal law சொல்றாங்களா கை தூக்குங்க. Yes. Income tax law is a criminal law. Okay. Income tax law is a civil law. கை தூக்குங்க. கை தூக்குறது எக்ஸசைஸ் என்னன்னு தெரியுமா? உங்க தூங்க வைக்காம இருக்கிறதுக்காக தான். Yes. So civil law தான் maximum கை தூக்கிக்கிறீங்க. So that it has been correct. Law college students have to be correct. Income tax law is a civil law. Why I am saying this is, under the Indian legal system, both civil law and criminal law are placed differently. In a criminal law, what is required? The prosecution has to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the accused has committed a crime. Correct? இது என்னது criminal law. ஏன்னா ஜெயிலுக்குள்ள போடணும், அவளை பனிஷ்மெண்ட் பண்ணணும். இதனால criminal law is in a different platform. Income tax law வந்து கேட்டீங்களா? Income tax also imprisonment is there, but not immediately after the right? Here, the burden of proof keeps shifting between the income tax department and the taxpayer. And there is no concept of proving beyond reasonable doubt. If I have to levy penalty, Supreme Court has laid down this principle. As per human reasonableness and probability, இவர் வந்து தப்ப செஞ்சாரா, எதனால இந்த ஆடிட் அக்கௌண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் டைமுக்குள்ளார கொடுக்கல. சார் கோவிட்ல வந்துட்டேன், வீட்டில் ஒரு கண்டோலன்ஸ், ஹாஸ்பிட்டலைசேஷன், என்னோட ஆடிட்டர் மாறிட்டாரு, அக்கௌண்டன்ட் வந்து வேலையை விட்டு போயிட்டாரு. Are these reasonable causes? The court says yes. You have to weigh all this into account to say whether the delay was reasonable or not. புரியுதுங்களா? So income tax law is a civil law, not a criminal law. Okay. Criminal law இன்னொன்று என்னன்னா, you don't have to ask for a statement from the accused. கரெக்ட்டுங்களா? போலீஸ் ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட் எழுதுறாங்க, ஆனா it is not to be signed. Fundamental difference income tax law என்னன்னா, we are quasi judicial authorities. Fundamental. Police is not a quasi judicial authority. So we administer income tax. At the same time, we are also expected to judicially discharge our responsibility. So we are quasi judicial authority. Okay, practical out. Quasi judicial authority na enna? Every notice issued by the income tax authority is considered to be a quasi judicial proceeding. Second, the income tax authority is empowered to summon a person and record a sworn statement. எப்படி கோர்ட்ல வந்து sworn statement ரெக்கார்ட் பண்றாங்க இல்லையா, அதே மாதிரி income tax department is authorized to record a sworn statement. போலீஸ் பண்ண முடியுமா? போலீஸ் அவங்க கூப்பிட முடியும், என்கொயரி நடத்த முடியும், ஆனா sworn statement ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ண முடியாது. So sworn statement becomes an evidence in the Income Tax Act. So this is the outline. Whenever I see less cheerfulness, I am going to do that exercise. Tax litigation in India. What is the legal framework? In the tax system, there is a legal framework. First, you have to deal with the 4 parts in the income tax law. One is Income Tax Act. As I told you, we are into 2025 with effect from April 2026. Then we have income tax rules. In the Income Tax Act rules, the Act deals with only the legal provision which is passed in the Parliament. Income tax rules that subserve the Income Tax Act in terms of forms. Income tax deals with hundreds of forms, dozens of audit reports, and so many compliances. All these are combined and made as income tax rules. Income tax rules lays on how a particular section is to be applied, how a property is to be attached, how a property is to be auctioned. இந்த ப்ரொசீஜர் எல்லாம் இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் ஆக்ட்ல வைக்க மாட்டாங்க. இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் ஆக்ட் வந்து தனியா ஒரு லெஜிஸ்லேட்டிவ் டூல் பாஸ் இன் தி பார்லிமெண்ட். இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் ஆக்ட் அடுத்த क्वेश्चन. இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் ஆக்ட் எங்க பாஸ், ஸ்டேட் அசெம்பிளில பாஸ் பண்ணுவாங்களா, பார்லிமெண்ட்ல பாஸ் பண்ணுவாங்களா? பார்லிமெண்ட். குட், வெரி குட். I admire the faculty who taught tax law. Why in parliament? Why not in Tamil Nadu State Assembly? Next question. Okay. How many lists are there in the constitution? 3 lists. Okay. Central, state, concurrent. 100 out of 100. Good. Clap yourself. Doing a good job. So income tax law comes under central subject. That is why it is passed in the Indian Parliament, not in State Assembly. Likewise, GST also. GST is a separate department. Okay, another question. What is the difference between income tax and GST? Income tax is what? Direct or indirect tax? Good, unanimous. Good. GST? Okay. You understand the difference between direct tax and indirect tax? The person who earns income pays directly to the government. It is direct tax. Whereas the person who pays tax on behalf of somebody else. You go to a restaurant, he collects GST, right? And who takes food? The person, goes to the restaurant. So he doesn't pay. The customers in a restaurant, customer in a beauty parlor, they don't pay GST directly to the government department. He pays to the beauty parlor owner or he pays to the restaurant owner, and on behalf of the government, those owners, property owners collect and then they pay to the government department. Those who pay do not actually pay. That is why they pay indirectly. So, fine difference. Okay, கொஞ்சம் philosophical level of thought. Since I am in the income tax department, naturally, you try to boast of your income tax department. So, in developed countries, income tax department, direct tax contribution should be more. 50 years ago, central excise, customs, all these indirect taxes were known. So, many economists said, in a growing nation, in a developing nation, you need to be fair and therefore you should levy progressive taxation. கொஞ்சம் காம்ப்ளிகேட் ஆனப்போ நான் உங்களுக்கு புரியுற மாதிரி சொல்லிடுறேன். Why it is fair and progressive? Why income tax is more fair and progressive compared to GST? Why direct tax is on a fair footing? ஏன் அப்படின்னா direct tax வந்து progressive. எத்தனை ஸ்லாப் இருக்கு? 5, 10, 20, 30 ஸ்லாப், 30% வரைக்கும் இருக்கு. Meaning those who earn more income will pay tax at a higher rate. Earn பண்றது 5%, சின்ன லெவல்ல earn பண்ணீங்கன்னா 5% கட்டா போதும். மேல போனா 10%, 20%, 30%. Whereas மார்னிங் எழுந்திருக்கிறீங்க, டூத் பேஸ்ட் எடுக்கிறீங்க, Colgate டூத் பேஸ்ட், ஒரு poor person in a slum Colgate டூத் பேஸ்ட் எடுத்தா அந்த Colgateல GST இருக்கு, கரெக்ட்டா? A rich man also opens Colgate டூத் பேஸ்ட், அதுல GST இருக்கு. But both of them have paid the same GST. Is it fair? No. So that is why we say the income tax is very fair. The higher your income, the higher the rate of taxation, right? So whereas GST doesn't distinguish whether you are poor, middle income, high income, all of you have to pay the same percentage of tax. But when the country grows, the direct tax contribution should be more. So fortunately, our country is growing. So today, as of today, 55% of the tax revenue, 100 rupees tax revenue வந்ததுன்னா direct tax மூலமா, income tax and corporate tax மூலமா 55% வந்து வருது. 45% your GST, customs, central excise, all together. So we are on the right track when it comes to tax law and evolution. You need to be aware of CBDT. CBDT is Central Board of Direct Tax, which is our chief, the highest policy making body for income tax. Then we have judicial decisions. Income Tax Act northern judicial decisions on. As you all know, in every sphere of law, the Honorable High Court and Supreme Court will lay down certain decisions which will become like law. That law is not passed by the Parliament, but the law is laid down in terms of interpretation. Do High Courts and Supreme Courts pass law? No. Legislature is an institution which passes law. Judiciary is there to interpret law. While interpreting a law, it lays down its own law. From that time onwards, the litigations will be decided not only based on the income tax provision, but also in the light of the High Court and Supreme Court decision. High Court is jurisdictional High Court. You understand what is jurisdictional High Court? For Chennai, which is the jurisdictional High Court? Madras High Court. Why is it called jurisdictional High Court? Why is it called jurisdictional High Court? Whatever the decision given by the Madras High Court is applicable throughout Tamil Nadu. புரியுங்களா? கர்நாடகா High Courtல சொன்னது தமிழ்நாட்டுல applicable ஆகுமா? There are contradictory decisions. Karnataka High Court gives one decision, Madras High Court decision. Who will decide the final? Who will go to Supreme Court? We will go to Supreme Court. Likewise, even in income tax, there are always mixed opinion. So, when it comes to mixed decision, Honorable High Court will take the final call. Now coming to the tax litigation process. நான் சொன்ன மாதிரி கவனமாக கவனித்து நீங்கள் நோட்ஸ் எடுத்து வச்சிட்டிங்கன்னா இன்கம் டேக்ஸ் லா பேப்பர் கிளியர் பண்ணிடுவீங்க. That much I shouldn't say can give you. I am not going into sections. உங்களோட என்னன்னா just to sensitize you, income tax law can be chosen as your profession. Now coming to the where does the tax litigation start? First எடுத்த உடனே எப்படி போலீஸ் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்ல வந்து சப் இன்ஸ்பெக்டர் ஆஃப் போலீஸ் தான் கட்டிங் எட்ஜ், கரெக்டுங்களா? அதே மாதிரி your cutting edge in the income tax department is assessing officer. He may be an income tax officer or assistant commissioner of income tax. That's the first level of tax litigation. As I told you, assessing officer is a quasi-judicial authority. When a notice is issued, you on behalf of a taxpayer can get authorization and appear before the assessing officer. Next level in the litigation process is commissioner appeal. கொஞ்சம் different from your regular judiciary. Regular judiciary is subordinate court, municipal court, then district court, then high court. So they are all part of the judiciary. In income tax department, this litigation process is a little different. We have provided the first level of appellate authority within the department. So look at the trust the parliamentary reports on this. So the commissioner of appeal is part of the income tax department, but he is expected to be neutral. So he will adjudicate a litigation between a taxpayer and the department. Although he is working in the department, he is not working for the department. He is expected to be judicious, and many commissioner appeals decide in favor of the taxpayers. This is the first level of appeal. அடுத்து போலாம். இதுக்கு அடுத்து யாருக்கா தெரியுமா? Above commissioner of appeal, anyone heard of what is the next level of appeal in the income tax department? Outside the department. Now answer is out. Second, this is called second level of appellate authority in the income tax litigation. It's ITAT, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. This comes under the long list, not under the Income Tax Act. It will be almost like a court. Those who like to pursue income tax as your profession, please do visit this ITAT courts at Rajaji Bhavan, Besant Nagar. Go to that. There is it will be conducted almost like a court. What is the next level? Any guess? After ITAT? High Court. You are right. Then you go to the High Court. Then after that, easy guess, Supreme Court. So like any other law, Supreme Court is the final authority to decide tax litigation. Now coming to the trends in Indian income tax litigation. இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் ஹையர் லெவலுக்கு உங்களை அப்டேட் பண்ணுறேன். பேசிக் இன்கம் டேக்ஸ்ல இருந்து கொஞ்சம் ஹையர் லெவல். இன்கம் டேக்ஸே ஒரு ஸ்பெஷலைஸ்ட் ஏரியா. இன்கம் டேக்ஸ் உள்ளார there are at least 10 specialized areas. A lawyer who has specialized in one area of income tax is not an authority. Now you will understand. Now, when did liberalization start in India? 1991, liberalization started. Meaning what? Your market is open, trade is open. We entered a global market in 1991. Now, 35 years have gone. Now, India is integrated with the world, and so there are cross-border issues. Cross-border issues mean international transactions நடக்குது. Till 1991, very few international transactions. Now, every day you see this international transaction. Transfer pricing. This you can say highly specialized field of income tax. I have seen lawyers in top audit firms who are specialized only in transfer pricing. If you have understood transfer pricing, you can say you are an expert in income tax law. I will explain in a simple word what is transfer pricing. இப்போ இந்தியாவுக்கும் சிங்கப்பூருக்கு இடையில வந்து ஒரு மல்டிநேஷனல் கம்பெனினா பெரிய கோகோகோலா அந்த மாதிரி பெரிய லெவல், இட்ஸ் an international கம்பெனி. அவங்க வந்து பிசினஸ் பண்றாங்க. அவங்களுக்கு வந்து சோர்சிங் ரா மெட்டீரியல்ஸ் இந்தியாவிலேருந்து இருக்கிறாங்க. அதை வந்து தாய்லாண்டில் வந்து ரா மெட்டீரியல்ஸாக ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணி அசம்பிள் பண்ணுறாங்க. அடுத்து சிங்கப்பூரில் கொண்டு போய் அதை பேக்கிங் பண்ணி அடுத்து யூஎஸ்ல கொண்டு போய் சேல் பண்ணிடுறாங்க. சரியா? 4 கண்ட்ரி சொல்லிட்டேன். இந்தியா, இந்தோனேஷியா, சிங்கப்பூர் அண்ட் யூஎஸ். இது மல்டிநேஷனல் கம்பெனி. இட்ஸ் அ செயின். சரிங்களா? இப்போ there is a value addition, raw materials purchase நடக்குது, அங்க ஒரு பிசினஸ் நடக்குது, ப்ராசஸிங் நடக்குது, வேல்யூ அடிஷன் நடக்குது இந்தோனேஷியால, அங்க ஒரு வேல்யூ அடிஷன் நடக்குது, பேக்கிங் பண்றாங்க சிங்கப்பூர்ல, சேல் பண்றாங்க யூஎஸ்ல. இப்போ இந்த மல்டிநேஷனல் கம்பெனி இஸ் டீலிங் வித் இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் அத்தாரிட்டிஸ் இன் 4 countries. கரெக்டா? இப்போ அவங்களுக்கு டாக்ஸேஷன் இஷ்யூ இருக்கும். ஸோ எனி பிசினஸ் லைக்ஸ் டு ரெடியூஸ் தேர் டாக்ஸ் liability. What do? They do a tax planning in such a way their overall tax liability is less. என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா எந்த கண்ட்ரியில லோயஸ்ட் இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் இருக்கு அப்படின்னு பார்ப்பாங்க. சிங்கப்பூர்ல லோயஸ்ட் இன்கம் டாக்ஸா? என்ன பண்ணு, இந்த ப்ராஃபிட் அக்கௌண்ட்ஸ்ல காமிக்கிற ப்ராஃபிட் இருக்கு பாருங்க, அது எல்லாத்தையும் சிங்கப்பூர்ல வர மாதிரி காமிச்சா இந்தியாவில் வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஹையர், இந்தோனேஷியாவில் அதிகம், யூஎஸ்ல அதிகம். அதனால யூ டூ த அக்கௌண்டிங் இன் சச் a way you show profit. நீ 1 crore வந்து ஒரு பிளாட் வாங்கிக்கிறீங்க, ஸோ இதை வந்து நீங்கள் நான் டேக்ஸ் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லணும். இந்த பேரண்ட்ஸ் என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க, இந்த 1 crore is not earned in India, has been transferred from my son in the USA, who has already paid tax before the American tax authorities. Okay, which is fair? 2 countries tax பண்ணணுமா? No, it is not fair, right? So okay, now how do we deal with that? You need to have an understanding. What is an understanding? Treaty. Treaty is nothing but an agreement, mutual agreement between 2 countries. Why? To avoid double taxation. ஒரு கோர்ஸ்ல படிக்க வேண்டியதை 1 minute படிச்சுங்க. Tax treaties and double taxation avoidance. அப்படின்னா என்னன்னா, to avoid paying tax for the same income in 2 different countries. Because once one income is to be taxed only once, not twice. But you need the taxation treaties. India has taxation treaties with many countries, but not with all. So first question from my side will be, show me the tax treaty with the country. You are saying I brought money from there. So the tax treaty will show if it is taxed in that country, you don't have to tax once again. So okay, transfer pricing disputes, digital economy taxation. Digital economy na இப்போ வந்து every month the UPI payment is multiplied, and the country which is spearheading in digital transaction, highest digital transaction ulla country India. You not believe, this is latest statistics. The whole world, you put in all banking transactions digitally done and UPI transaction, India has the highest digital economy. So digital economy எப்படி டாக்ஸ் பண்றதுங்கறதை நீங்க வந்து படிக்க வேண்டியிருக்கும். அடுத்து, what is your role as a tax lawyer? One, you can represent before tax authorities, correct? Suppose you do not like that, there are something called retired tax professionals. They say I do chamber practice, meaning sitting in his office he gives legal opinion. So there is another option, you can draft legal opinions. So this presentation is with you. Professor Gauri will share it with the students. So if you are writing down, taking notes, it's fine. So I'm leaving the presentation here. You can get it separately. Then when it comes to negotiation of settlement and agreement, you pitch in. There are a lot of arbitrators. Then finally, you are assisting in compliance. Compliance, every tax department has got a lot of compliance issues. Compliance to follow the rules and regulations of that particular tax authority. So when it comes to risk assessment, in the profession, in the மாதிரி industry, in the மாதிரி ஒரு business strategy போய் பார்க்கலாமா? அப்போ வந்து ஒரு tax lawyer will say, no sir, this is very risky because you will have to pay a lot of taxes. Now what are the skills required as a tax lawyer? Analytical skills, very much required for income tax. Then you need to be research oriented, because every day income tax law is evolving. Then you should be good at drafting. Then you should have a knowledge of global tax issues, particularly if you want to specialize in international taxation and transfer pricing. And believe me, there are a lot of lawyers getting into this field, niche area. Then what are the activities? Now, what are the emerging areas of opportunities? As I told you, these are new areas. The medicine, I was surprised to know, for food, there is a specialization. One doctor has done in Apollo, he is a specialized person only for food. So, ortho spinal hand limb. So, as we progress, every field is getting into a lot of specialization. So, law is not an exception. Even in law, as we progress, there will be more and more specialization. As I told you, digital economy and tax economy, tax-related technology, and you can also be an advisor in a tax policy. When you become a senior, and there are a lot of advisory committees to decide tax-related matters. Now, let me introduce you to income tax litigation. First, what is income tax litigation? So, typical of Athena, it's a legal process wherein taxpayers challenge tax assessments and disputes. Whenever the taxpayer says whatever the tax demand raised by the income tax department is not fair, I do not agree, then he has to compete. The dispute starts from there. Then, when there is a show cause notice from the income tax authority, you pitch in. You are given an opportunity, reasonable time to explain why this assessment should not be done in a particular way. That I propose to assess your income at this level and you pay tax this much. So income tax department always gives you a fair chance by sending a show cause notice. It is a must and you are given 15 days time to reply. Okay. What is the importance in tax law? Now, it is crucial for the students as it highlights taxpayers' rights, the legal process, and the critical role of fair representations. நிறைய பயம் வரதுக்கு என்ன காரணம்? இன்கம் டாக்ஸ் ப்ராக்டிஸ் வேணாம்னா அக்கௌண்டன்சி கொஞ்சம் படிச்சிருக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு பயம் இருக்கும். If you have a superficial knowledge of accountancy, that is sufficient. I'm telling you, in the income tax appellate tribunal, Rajaji Bhavan, Besant Nagar, where we argue with the tax lawyers, 2/3 of the representatives of the assessees, that is taxpayers, are lawyers, pure lawyers. They have got nothing to do with the audit. At that level, what is required is your legal acumen more than your knowledge in accountancy. On High Court, it is 99% it's only tax lawyers. அடுத்த High Court போனீங்கன்னா கேளுங்க, tax bench ஒன்று இருக்குங்க, tax bench. And the High Court judges they need to be specialized. Not all judges opt for tax bench. Only very few judges who are specialized in tax law, they opt for tax bench. So among so many courtrooms, please have a glance at when you are going for a mock court, have a look at tax bench. Now, what are the different kinds of tax disputes? One related to audits. So audit reports in the income tax department always insists on many audit reports for individual, partnership, companies, cooperatives. So there are different kinds of audit reports. If there is an issue with the audit report, you have a role to play. Then comes refund claims. Sir, I paid excess tax, you give me a refund. Okay, இன்னொரு கேள்வி, எத்தனை law students or parents are paying income tax? Exercise, raise your hands. Yes, great. Your parents are paying income tax. Okay, now you know basics of income tax. Okay, good. So you might have heard of, I am trying for income tax refund. Now we have progressed in such a way, 80 to 90% of the refunds are issued automatically without any question within a month. This is the record, you can Google it and see. 80 to 90% of the refund claims are cleared through electronic mode. It will get credited into your bank account. There is still 10 to 20% there are some issues. Then deduction denials. Income tax in Mandachinale, one is taxing on the income Then comes the issue of claiming deduction and exemption. For industry now, backward area ஆரம்பிக்கிறது. Government wants to encourage, correct? அப்ப என்ன செய்றாங்க? If you start an industry in a backward area, we are offering you a deduction, right? And if you start put up a big industry, if you start this industry, because the government wants to promote that particular industry, correct? So deduction denials, when the department denies a particular deduction, then a dispute is settled. Then called tax credit disputes. You are claiming tax credit. Heard of TDS? Sir mentioned about TDS. TDS is not all that TDS. Tax deducted at source. Correct? Short form. Tax deducted at source. You ask your faculty what they do in the month of February. Or faculty, they go to the auditor. So my accounts officer says that so much is to be deducted. So monthly deduction also will be there. So all the faculty. So if you want to know about this tax credit by way of TDS, tax deducted at source, because salaried employee pays income tax every month through TDS. Tax deductor, that is a accounts officer or administrative officer in a law college, they calculate, they project the income tax for the whole year based on your monthly pay, and then they ask you, do you have deduction claim, medical insurance, this, then the accounts officer gives credit for that and then works out the net tax liability for 12 months. Then thereafter, every month they deduct from your salary. When the salary slip comes, we are there invariably in every monthly salary slip. So there will be deduction towards income tax liability. Right. So if by chance you come to know that TDS was done excess, then you have to file income tax return and claim refund of that excess tax credit. You may have missed out certain deduction claims. So you are permitted. What are the agencies involved in tax litigation? In addition to income tax, there are other agencies: CBI, ED, Enforcement Directorate. Good. So it's in the public knowledge. And RBI. So they also get to know about. They also face tax litigations, and they deal with the persons accused of corruption and in money laundering. And heard of PMLA, another niche area. PMLA, prevention of money laundering. Good. நல்லா கை தட்டிக்கீங்க, உங்களுக்கு நான் அப்ரிஷியேட் பண்றேன். PMLA, I never expected an answer for this question. Good, your tax knowledge is good. Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which is implemented by ED, Enforcement Directorate, which has power to arrest. Right? If there is a proceed of crime, ED is empowered to arrest. But நிறைய அரசு நீங்க பார்த்துட்டு இருப்பீங்க. அந்ததுன்னா ED department by way of PMLA. PMLA பத்தி நியூஸ் பேப்பர்ல யாரும் போடுறதில்ல. ED department ரைட் பண்ணாங்க, அரெஸ்ட் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. எதனால அரெஸ்ட் பண்ணாங்கன்னா Prevention of Money Laundering Act படி. That Prevention of Money Laundering Act empowers the ED department to arrest accused if they find any money which is considered to be proceed of crime. What is crime? Big list, starting with the corruption. So ED can write any person if they have information that there is a proceeds of a crime. Now let's go into the framework of income tax law. I will not go into detail. So you need to understand tax law and the regulation also. Here you need to also equip yourself to understand the role of income tax authorities. What is their limitation? So we have power, authority, at the same time we also have an accountability and responsibility. Right? So you need to also understand what is the authority of the income tax officer, what he can do, what he cannot do. So a lawyer must be aware of this also, so that you can also challenge that when there is jurisdictional issue, that an officer, you can always challenge saying, this income tax officer doesn't have a jurisdiction over my case. Regular general law in our case, first question is whether this court has jurisdiction over this case. Same way, you can question an income tax authority starting from the jurisdiction. Then comes appropriateness, whether it is in compliance with the tax law. Now coming to taxpayer rights. We are one of very few departments. We have, laid down what is called taxpayer rights, which we call it as a taxpayer charter of rights. You Google it and find out every taxpayer has got certain rights and officially declared. We call this as a delivery standards. Just like a corporate office, they have a delivery standard. நீங்க வந்து pizza order பண்ண எவ்வளவு நேரம் கிடைக்குது? Half an hour, 45 minutes. இல்லைன்னா free. அதான் advertisement. That is called delivery standard. So we have announced delivery standard that we will process your income tax return within these many days. We will issue refund within these many days. பட் ஸ்விக்கி மாதிரி உடனே பணம் கேட்கக்கூடாது சார் நீங்க ரீஃபண்ட் கொடுக்கல அதனால ஃப்ரீயா எங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது கொடுக்காது. ஸோ பட் திஸ் இஸ் த சார்ட்டர் ஆஃப் ரைட்ஸ் விச் தி டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் ஹஸ் அனௌன்ஸ்ட். Now overview of taxpayer bill of rights. Then what are the rights before during tax audits and appeals? So as I already told you, there are disputes related to audits and what are the appellate authorities that we have. So what is the first level of authority? Within the department, Commissioner of Appeal. Next, after the assessing officer passes an order, your client doesn't agree with that, first you go to Commissioner of Appeal or Joint Commissioner of Appeal. Then what is the next level? ITAT, next High Court and Supreme Court. Now process of income tax litigation. So I keep 20 minutes for question and answer. All of you look very clear. Shall I keep 20 minutes? Okay. I'll try to wind up by 11:10 or 11:50. Okay. Now first you can challenge a tax assessment. Tax is always levied by a speaking order of the income tax authority. A speaking order is சொல்றது காரணம் என்னன்னா, he will start with what you declare to the department, opportunities given, issues identified, more than anything else, evidences brought on record. Just like any charge sheet filed by the prosecution in the court, there will be an assessment order. The assessment order என்ன வித்தியாசம்னா, it is an order already passed by a quasi-judicial authority. Straight away you can go to the appellate authority. As I told you, you may file appeal at 4 levels. What are pre-litigation considerations? Before filing an appeal, income tax order வந்துச்சுன்னா you are given 30 days time to file an appeal before Commissioner of Appeal. Commissioner of Appeal order வந்துடுச்சு and you don't agree with that Commissioner of Appeal order, you have not got justice. Then you go to the second appeal within 60 days. Before that you have to do research. You have to read the order. You have to understand your client's point of view. Then you prepare appeal by way of grounds of appeal. Just like you have a grounds of appeal in the High Court, we have grounds of appeal from the Commissioner of Appeal level. So you have to give a grounds of appeal and to give proper documentation. அதுக்கு என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க, paper book. So you need to file paper book. Now we are getting into the core litigation area, litigation procedure. First you need to understand the tax code and what are the types of cases heard, and you need to understand the responsibility of tax appellate authorities also, right? How you have to conduct yourself before appellate authority. Now conducting a trial, we are nearing conclusion. First thing is expected is presentation of evidence in favor of your clients, right? Then comes understanding burden of proof. As I already told you, Tax law enna sonna? Civil law, criminal law? Civil law. Okay. Civil law la, criminal law la enna vishayam? The accused need not prove anything. Accused can remain silent throughout the proceedings. Right? He can. Right? The onus is on the prosecution to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the accused is has committed the crime. இங்க எப்படின்னா the burden of proof keeps shifting between income tax department and the taxpayer. Okay. Your faculty says you will have a lot of questions, so I will allot more time for your questions. Okay, then I will rush up this part. Now you consider me as an appellate authority, then you can argue your case. Huh? You have to be familiar with the rulings and judgments on the topics you are arguing, settlements and trial decisions. What is the feature of income tax litigation? You have to familiarize with the digital economy, international tax issues, skills expected of a tax lawyer. You need to have analytical skills, and if you want to have a career in tax law, you need to understand the relevant framework that I mentioned. There is something called faceless. I will conclude with this one. Income tax department proudly says 90% of interaction with the income tax department have become faceless. The government does not want a physical interface because the physical interface leads to a lot of harassment with the government thinking and different kinds of malpractices. So India is one of very few countries in the world which has introduced faceless assessment system. நீங்க செமஸ்டர் பேப்பர் எழுதுறீங்க, எந்த ப்ரொஃபஸர் கரெக்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க யாருக்காவது தெரியுமா? தெரியாது. டம்மி மார்க் நம்பர் போட்டிருப்பாங்க. Finally you see only the marks. Which professor has corrected, you do not know. Same way, taxpayer will not know which income tax officer he is dealing with. That is called faceless assessment and appeal. Same way, appeal is also made faceless. You can only communicate through the portal. You understand? Try to understand. You go to a court, you see the judges who argue. Whereas in income tax department, 90% of your interaction are through faceless. You interact only through electronic mode. The name which appears is not the name person who has really seen the paper. So there is no physical interface with the income tax department. Now, it's already summarized. These are appellate process and appeal scheme. Appeal scheme is also made electronic. No personal appearance, entirely online proceedings. And CET appeal I have already told you. Then appellate, ITAT, Income Tax Appellate Authority. It is similar to court. How you have to behave, the dress code, etiquette, everything is similar to the high courts you may have seen. So you have to make an affidavit and file it, and grounds of appeal, and dress code. Conclusion, message to students. You need to understand that income tax law is always evolving and it is dynamic. And continuous learning is the key. You need to embrace technology. It is no longer manual mode, manual filing of papers. Everything is digital. Uphold ethics and pursue excellence. Thank you. All the best. Now floor is open. Okay.